Welcome to Chanel the latest. The ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia has been a source of tension and violence for several years now. In recent months, Ukrainian forces have been using drones to target Russian mercenaries who are believed to be operating in the eastern regions of Ukraine. In particular, there have been reports of clashes between Ukrainian forces and Wagner mercenaries near the towns of Bakhmut and Soledar. In this article, we will examine the use of drones in this conflict and explore the recent clashes between Ukrainian forces and Wagner mercenaries. The conflict between Ukraine and Russia dates back to 2014, when Russia annexed Crimea and began supporting separatists in eastern Ukraine. Since then, the conflict has escalated into a full-blown war, with both sides engaging in fighting in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions of Ukraine. The conflict has resulted in the deaths of thousands of people and the displacement of many more. In recent years, drones have become an increasingly important tool in modern warfare. They are particularly useful for gathering intelligence, conducting surveillance, and striking targets with precision. Ukrainian forces have been using drones to monitor the movements of Russian forces and to target their positions. In particular, the use of armed drones has allowed Ukrainian forces to strike targets with greater accuracy and effectiveness. These drones are equipped with missiles and bombs that can be used to destroy enemy positions and equipment. This has given Ukrainian forces a significant advantage over Russian mercenaries, who are often poorly equipped and lack the training and experience of regular soldiers. Clashes near Bakhmut and Soledar. There have been several recent clashes between Ukrainian forces and Wagner mercenaries near the towns of Bakhmut and Soledar. These clashes have been particularly intense, with both sides using heavy artillery and other weapons. On April 26, 2023, Ukrainian forces used drones to target a convoy of Wagner mercenaries near Bakhmut. The convoy was believed to be transporting weapons and other supplies to a nearby Russian military base. The Ukrainian drones struck several of the vehicles, destroying them and killing several of the mercenaries. The following day, there was another clash between Ukrainian forces and Wagner mercenaries near Soledar. Ukrainian drones were again used to strike enemy positions, destroying several artillery pieces and killing a number of mercenaries. The clashes near Bakhmut and Soledar are just the latest in a series of violent incidents in the region. Despite a ceasefire agreement signed in 2022, the conflict in eastern Ukraine shows no signs of abating. Russian support for separatists in the region continues, and Ukrainian forces remain on high alert. The use of drones by Ukrainian forces has given them a significant advantage in the ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine. These drones have allowed Ukrainian forces to monitor enemy movements, gather intelligence, and strike targets with precision. The recent clashes near Bakhmut and Soledar demonstrate the effectiveness of this strategy, as Ukrainian drones were able to inflict significant damage on Russian mercenaries and their equipment. However, the conflict in eastern Ukraine is far from over. As long as Russian support for separatists in the region continues, there is likely to be continued violence and instability. The use of drones may give Ukrainian forces an advantage, but it is ultimately up to political leaders to find a way to bring an end to this conflict and restore peace to the region. The crash and roar of artillery rarely stops in this eastern Ukrainian city. In the cold and broken houses, residents huddle by candlelight and pray that they have safety in numbers. On the battlefield, soldiers on both sides are dying in droves. While Ukrainian advances have redrawn the battlefield map elsewhere, the front line in Bakhmut, in the Donetsk region some 10 miles from the border of Luhansk, has barely moved in 4 months of heavy fighting. Of all the battles in the east, President Volodymyr Zelensky said last week, the most difficult is here. Yet in this fight for control of a shattered city, military experts say the ambitions of a Russian oligarch, Yevgeny Prigozhin, founder of the Wagner mercenary group, may have eclipsed all strategic logic. After a disorderly Russian retreat from nearby Izium, the battle for Bakhmut is no longer part of any coordinated military operation. Instead, Prigozhin is pouring waves of mercenaries from Wagner into battle, appearing to see political advantage in capturing Bakhmut as a military trophy while President Vladimir Putin's regular forces are on the back foot elsewhere. Outgunned and outnumbered, exhausted Ukrainian troops are relying on nimbler tactics to withstand the brutal battle, monitoring enemy lines with civilian drones as newly recruited engineers experiment with customized weapons from pop-up laboratories in abandoned buildings nearby. "To be honest, we have to," said Vlad, who is overseeing the 93rd Brigade's effort to refit drones, anti-tank mines and other weapons so that they are more effective. "The Russians have the soldiers, the guns, everything. We need to be smart," he said. The salt mining city of Bakhmut had a population of 70,000 before Russia's February 24 invasion of Ukraine. Perhaps 15,000 remain, but the streets were almost empty as fighting raged there this week. Weeds smothered the wheat fields. Military vehicles sped down roads gouged by rockets, kicking up clouds of dust as they went. At the 93rd Brigade's command post, a drone operator peered at the live feed of Russian positions that it was sending back to him. The soldiers worked fast, slipping mortar rounds down the barrel and loosing them up through the sky. Someone had scrawled, "Director," on the drone operator's chair. Squinting down at the screen of his tablet, he waited a second, then he nodded, and a ripple of delight coursed through the men. "But these still felt like some of the unit's worst days," said Dima, their 25-year-old commander. When darkness enveloped their dugout a night earlier, Russian forces fired on them with mortars and cluster munitions. "It's not the first time we've been under fire, but this is different now," Dima said. After 4 years in the Ukrainian army, Dima said the battle for Bakhmut was among the most dangerous he had witnessed. The fighting and its echoes hung heavy through the city on Wednesday. The air throbbed with the sound of shelling. When that fell quiet, clanking metal in the wind was the only sound left. A 51-year-old entrepreneur, Alexander, had dried blood on his face from a rocket strike that smashed his home the night before. He did not have clean water to wash up. He said he had invited his neighbors, a young couple and their daughter, to stay with him in the apartment, thinking that they would be safer if they stuck together. The parents were now in intensive care, he said, and their 9-year-old child, Liza, had been evacuated, alone, to another city. "I thought our place was safer," he said blankly. "We were just sitting there. We were drinking tea." In a recent analysis, the Institute for the Study of War, a Washington-based think tank, described Prigozhin's Bakhmut effort as irrelevant operationally, after Russia's loss of Izium, 60 miles north. The Russian seizure of Bakhmut, which is unlikely to occur considering Russian forces have impaled themselves on tiny surrounding settlements for weeks, would no longer support any larger effort to accomplish the original objectives of this phase of the campaign.